how we came to incorporate stormwater management into redeveloping an area in downtown. Now, for those of you who are at the Stormwater Conference on the 20th, I apologize. This was redundant for you. For Greg, I've seen this video many times. Greg was a design engineer, so Brian Tracy in the background. Jennifer also had a lot to do with helping out, in addition to the 5 gentlemen in the city department. When we started looking at Gray Station, this map was pretty ugly. We were getting into a situation where there was a lot of industrial waste left outside. All those orange spaces represent something that was considered hazardous and actually was found below surface in some instances and on the ground, which potentially created issues for stormwater runoff for anybody living outside. We had to do full mitigation of this site with years of environmental neglect by industrial uses. We'll get into this when the city speaks, but what was on site in this location, which is located south of Martin Luther King, just north of the Raccoon River, North Grays Lake, were 2 detention basins that functioned to hold stormwater for flood events because the water would build up behind the levee heading into the river. It was a very effective way of dealing with stormwater, holding it and pumping it into the river. It didn't take into account what could be potentially an area that could be redeveloped and utilize stormwater for a nice amenity. It just basically functioned to pump water into the river, hold it and pump it into the river. On site, here's an example of what the site looked like before we got it. There were railroad ties for the car. There was leftover railroad tracks, homeless shelters with hazardous waste on site, number of issues. When we looked at the site, we said, wait a minute, how can we think about this differently? How can we take examples that we saw in Denver, Colorado, where they were incorporating prairie plantings into the landscape and designing waterways that treated the water before it went gray into the gray infrastructure and then back into green infrastructure? What can we do different, and how can we build housing value to this area so both the city and the developer had a funding source to treat this area differently? How can we deal with the unmovable? The yellow and the red or orange they represent major city systems that just couldn't be moved, in addition to major power lines that run through the site. How do we deal with these 2 basins and make them more attractive and add housing to the area, but yet deal with infrastructure that's next to them, possibly from an economic viewpoint? How do we handle forgive me if, is it around 300 acres of watershed, Brian? 400. 400 acres. How do we deal with 400 acres of water moving into this area and make it a safe place to build housing and make it effective? How do we connect places through the downtown? We have natural resources, the river right there, Grays Lake. We have downtown, but there's no connections in between. How do we build an amenity that can deal with stormwater but yet connect places? How do we educate people that we should be doing it differently? How do we protect wildlife in the area? How do we activate the river? And you know, Homer Realty Company is participating in the Water Trails project. We believe that'll add significant value to downtown and the region. And so it was very important to us when we looked at this area that we have to reactivate it. When we think about stormwater, we have to think about people interacting with the water, not just treating the water and making it clean, but getting people to enjoy it. Because we believe that getting people interacting with the water will make people focus on making sure that it's treated correctly. How do we create a system like what we're doing today, where we listen to people, we include people, we develop planning efforts that has all different viewpoints into our plan? And what we found in this process, and why we're here today, is the answer to the question is a partnership, and it's a partnership between all of us. What we were able to do at Gray Station, as I get into their slides, we weren't able to do it as a developer by ourselves. We weren't able to do it just with the city of Des Moines. We needed many different agencies to be a participant in this and all buy into it in order to make it successful. So here we are at Gray Station. Again, to orient you, our property is the area you see there in yellow. Some of it's been transferred to the city, but that's the area in yellow. It's just south of Martin Luther King, just west of South 11th Street, north of Raccoon River, Grays Lakes to the south. And the Dyko site that people are familiar with, it's just right next door to that super fun site. Here's the watershed I spoke of. I'm not going to go into detail because I don't want to ruin the city's presentation here. But remember, I said there's 400 acres that flowed into this property. So we started with the planning process, and we said, and when we met with people, so we would like to see an interconnected community with the stormwater features, with the river, with Grays Lake. So what our creative engineers did, they're in the room here, is they worked together to develop a system where water would flow through the neighborhood, through park systems and through underground facilities, and eventually find itself to migrate into an enhanced wetland basin system that would slow the water down and treat it before it was pumped out to the river. And we designed the community so that everything had direct connections. We called it filtered permeability for pedestrians and water. How we can make sure everything migrates to this basin, and housing utilizes that basin as a very pretty amenity to add value to the housing, which then could actually pay back the improvement to that enhanced wetland. And then also a key function was to create walkways and a pedestrian trail that connected the river, the enhanced wetland, Grays Lake, and waterway parks all together as one natural system. Everything was designed in this development to not only connect people to places, but also connect people to water. And we learned from examples from around the country. We traveled, we went to Denver, we went to many different areas that just thought of stormwater as more of a park amenity, a functional park amenity, and we said, we can do that in Des Moines. And these are examples of the different areas around the country that we wanted Grays Station to become, working with the city of Des Moines. You can see the trail and the wetlands. They provide a really enhanced view of someone who would be living nearby. Spaces where children and people can interact with the science that's incorporated into the natural ecosystem. How can people learn that we can plant different types of plants and hold stormwater and learn how wildlife works together to make sure that it ends up in a cleaner state when we release it downstream. So we really had the vision of this is what we wanted Grays Station to become. And we see it in other areas of the metro. We see what Johnston's doing in their amenities. We see it in areas of Waukee, our conservation developments that Hubble's doing. But this was bringing a more grand regional focus to how we're treating stormwater downtown. So our engineers worked together with our landscape architects and came up with a system. And again, this is going to get into detail, but how we could move water through native vegetation and pools and hold it during normal storm events so that we're cleaning it with native plant species. And that was very important to us that it not only functioned to clean the water, but it was also very aesthetically pleasing. We built housing and higher end housing. These are the $1 million homes that are going to go in at Grays Station. They're under construction right now. They're going to have views and view corridors of this area. It had to be aesthetically pleasing, it had to be functional. We have to have trails along it so that everything works in balance, the economics with the environment. And we were able to develop a master plan to utilize our more expensive development around this basin. This represents the basin right here. We put high-end condominiums and high-end homes and trail systems all balanced off that development. And the commercial corridor that linked it all in together so that when people were traveling from Grays Lake, they moved through the investment and get the benefit of the environmental amenity next to it. Here's kind of a big flyover, our phase 1 area. Here's Grays Lake, here's the Raccoon River. This is phase 1 of our development, and you can see how large this basin is. Here's our pump station and how it's designed in keeping the residential community in mind as it develops around it. Very important for us to connect the amenity Gray Station and Waterworks Park, which is going to have an underpass. This trail system links all the way up, across our bridge, and around that amenity that we placed on the south end of the development. There's some pictures of the bridge. If you haven't been out there, the bridge is done. The lights work, it's beautiful. The trail's almost going to be accepted to the city. There's some work that we have to do to work around it, but that's all coming into play. And I had a video on this. I don't know if I can get it to work. Is there a way to click on this? Any chance? If not, that's okay. It'll probably save time for everybody. Anyway.
Is it in your other? Oh, there you go.
It took many years working with the city and working with those different agencies I mentioned earlier. If you go down there, you can see progress being made. It's quite amazing how the area has been transformed. And this is the link. This is the building you see on MLK. It's framed now. There's Tyvek on the first phase. The second phase is the second floor framing. This pole is being constructed as we speak. These townhomes that are on the first phase of Gray Station, they start on the north end of what we call downtown affordable, roughly in that $300,000 range. I know that's funny, but and they move all the way up to $1 million homes and $1 million condos that will have a view of both downtown and the lake. Affordable housing is an issue downtown, but in order to pay for all these amenities and improvements, to be a benefit to Des Moines and to work on the development side because the cost was so great to clean it up, we had to have a higher level of housing for it all. And as we transition to future phases, we can incorporate affordability, but we need to make the economics work with this design because it was so front and loaded that we needed that return on the investment really quickly. If you look at the internal areas, these are renderings, but we've worked with our landscape architects to design spaces that water can move through the common green areas and then back to Gray and then back to the basins. The plantings, and this is a rendering done by a professional. The plantings were specially chosen so that they can grow in water as well. So they're a little choppy here. This is a big file. But when we get towards the end, this is the southern end. You saw the picture earlier. These are they're single-family homes, really 3-story single-family homes, very close put together, high density, and then the basin is on our side of the picture here. There's a first smaller condo, there's going to be larger condos facing south. And then what I really wanted to show you is the magnitude of the basin. And this is the trail system that is complete. It's under city review right now for acceptance. And as you travel down the trail, just south of the trail there is the basin. And forgive the rendering, but it doesn't give it justice. But you can see what we were trying to accomplish with the trail connections and that nice environmental amenity that all the houses are in front, and then the connection with the pedestrian bridge over to Graves Lake. What's fascinating is this rendering almost looks exactly like the bridge being built. It's amazing that we have the technology today. And everything now connects together. So we were able to figure out how we can transform this forgotten industrial site into something that now has become an regional environmental amenity, something that can add significant value to the downtown and complete the mission of Capital Crossroads. How can we work together to better our community? And that's really was the focus of this development project, working hand in hand with the city of Des Moines. I'm proud to be part of it. I'm proud of everybody in this room that's worked on it. It was a big struggle at first to get done, and without the help of the individuals in this room and the individuals I represented earlier, it could have never got here. And I think that's what this is all about. Correct me if I'm wrong here. So, did anybody have questions for me? I know there's a lot to this, and that was very high level. But
thoughts on long-term maintenance? Obviously, we want to get it looking good right off the bat, we also want to keep it looking good long-term.
As a selfish developer, I wanted to make sure someone who had the capacity to do long-term maintenance was in charge of this. We negotiate with the city, and the city of Des Moines, Parks and Rec Department, and their Public Works Department are the people who are going to be maintaining this. They felt, rightfully so, that they're better equipped to make sure it's done right versus a homeowners association, and it's so large, impacting the rest of downtown, that they were the right resource to make sure that this was taken care of. But they also test us as a developer to make sure that this was producing enough income to make that sustainable. And that's why we had to focus housing and the highest in housing we could, especially up front, to make sure that we can put the bill moving forward.
Have you seen housing sell? So
Yes.
you're seeing a return on that?
Yes, we are. We have a little bit of higher end development right now in the Bridge District, and as fast as we build them, they sell. We have lots of reservations already set forth in this development. And we have people, the apartments aren't done.